Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video. This video is featuring some products from My Favorite Things, including their Sweater Weather in the Woods, stamps and dies, and then I am also using the little tree stump, which was actually a freebie in one of my orders, and then some stencils. I'm using the Sunny Rays, the grassy, I think it was just grassy stencil, the drifts and hills, and then these little elegant rectangles. I think they're super cute, and it's just kind of like a fun way to add a little something to what would otherwise just be a regular scene card, so I thought I'd try that out. So we're going to do some distress ink blending, we're going to do some stamping and some coloring. It's kind of a long one because you guys know how my scene cards roll. I do want to address, before we go any further, which will be part of story time later on, I have Caitlin's cold, and so yesterday I had no voice. I was trying to yell at the dogs in the yard, and I sounded like a prepubescent boy, like my my voice kept breaking. So today is a little bit better. I am still quite gravelly, but since this is how your girl pays her bills, here we are with this voice today. So I wanted to do kind of a little hill in the background, and I made it a little bit lighter since it was in the background. So I did a yellow and a light green, and then I'm going to do the grasses up front. Ultimately, I'm going to be honest with you, you don't end up even seeing the grasses. The grass stencil I could have completely left out because all my little characters kind of cover it up. But nonetheless, if you didn't want to put any characters in this scene, you could do this and it would still be super cute. So there's that going on. The other thing that I wanted to address early on in the video is My Favorite Things is having a 40% off sale, including their retirement product. The only thing it excludes is the new category. So if it's in the new category, it's not 40% off, but everything else is, and everything that I used to create this card is not, well, it's not even kind of new. Honestly, it's a lot of old product, but it's super cute. So I really wanted to use these little Sweater Weather in the Woods guys. I've had them for a long time, and I haven't used them in a while. But I'm over winter cards. Like, not completely, and I'll go back to it, but like just I needed a break. And so I decided that I would turn my little fall weather guys into spring weather guys by changing up their color palette and then by changing up kind of the scenery in the background. And that is how they're going to be ready for spring. And I am ready for spring. We're still a little bit away. We're right at the beginning of February. It's only going to get worse from here. Here, something to note, I wanted to create a mask for my grasses, so I just held my stencil back in place on top of a piece of masking tape. This is Eclipse masking tape, and then I traced it with a pencil and then trimmed it out. It doesn't have to be a perfect. It just needs to be close enough to block out the grass so that you can do the sky portion. I've been using the Sunny Rays stencil quite a bit in my scenes, and I'm a big fan. But this time, I actually wanted to, I wanted to stick it down without having to tape it, because you could probably see in the other ones I was having a little bit of a hard time with them moving around and then taping my paper and all that jazz. So when we get there, you'll notice that I put Tempo Mono multi-glue on the back of it. I do this with a lot of my stencils because it dries repositionable. So then once it is dry, I tap it on my hand a bunch of times and then stick it to my cardstock, and it doesn't move because it has adhesive all over the place, but it won't be there permanently. You may also notice that we are speeding this up quite a bit. I don't ink blend quite this fast, but I wanted a base color to be the lighter portion of the rays, and then I will put my stencil in place after I do all the gluing I just talked about. So I will put my stencil in place and then I will ink blend over top of that. I did adhere the stencil so that the sun portion was actually behind the hill. So you really just get like the rays effect, which is just a kind of a different way to use this stencil. So Miss Caitlin has had a cold. She has a cold all the time. Yeah, I'm sure you guys are probably like, Kelly, why do you talk about your kid being sick? She's sick all the time. Yeah, she is. You're right. It's a super fun time. So she had just like a runny nose, the normal stuff. Thank God that not an upset tummy again. But at some point I noticed that I had a little bit of a cough, that I had some congestion. And I have to tell you, on a whole, I don't feel bad at all. Like, I don't feel more tired or like I have a headache or anything like that, which you would typically have with a head cold. I literally just don't. I just sound like this. I just sound like this. Yesterday was much, much worse. So Miss Thing had her 15-month checkup and everything is good. So she is growing. She's grown 2 inches and gained 3 pounds. So everything is looking good in that arena. I thought she had an ear infection. She did not. He said her ears looked good. So let's go back to the card. Here, this is me having sheer terror. Because I don't. I don't typically like draw onto my cards. Just because I'm frightened. And so this part that I'm doing right here is actually completely unnecessary. You don't even end up being able to see it. But I wanted some trees that were kind of like further in the background and then some trees that were closer up, so that I could do little cherry blossoms to really signify that it was springtime. And we've talked in the past before about other Copic colorists that I super love, and one of them is Amy Young. And Amy Young does her own backgrounds to pretty much all of her cards, and they're all amazing. But she does them all with Copic. She doesn't do any ink blending. She does all the Copic coloring. And I totally get that, because I did have to make up for the fact that I already had stuff in the background, and Copics are transparent, and now like I'm coloring over this blue sky and you can clearly see my stripes. No worries, I have a fix for that. I have a fix for that because I am not starting over. But nonetheless, this is just me sketching in my trees. The intention is for the trees in the back to be lighter and smaller, the trees in the front to be darker and bigger. And so that is kind of how you would go about putting them in. All of the little, for the background trees, all of the little branches and stuff that I put in, completely unnecessary. Don't do that. This was a lesson learned for me. Because ultimately at the end of the day, by the time I put all the greenery in, you couldn't see anything with their trunks anyway. So in the future, what I will probably do is I will do the trees in the front first, and then I'll just kind of sketch in their trunks in the background for the lighter trees, because that really honestly was probably all I had to do. So speaking of putting in the leaves for the trees, all I'm going to do to put in the leaves for my trees, I'm going to start with my lightest color, and I am just going to kind of hold the marker on its side and just kind of press down and pull back up. So it creates like a little oval shape, like a leaf. And I just did that all over all of my trees. You do want to, as you're building up your color, I started with my lightest color, but you want to leave the lighter colors kind of around the edges where more light or more sky would be coming through. And then your darker, more concentrated colors would be more toward the center of the tree, where that foliage would be a little bit thicker and you wouldn't be able to see as much light. But all of the colors that I used, I did the technique the exact same way. And I'm learning, while I'm making my cards too, and just kind of, trying to expand on the different ways that I make scene cards. And I would like to make it in a way that is achievable for all of us, for not just me. So that's what I'm doing here, and I hope that maybe you will give it a try in one of your cards. This was my first time doing it, and I had relatively decent results. I wasn't mad about it. And so I think that it's a pretty achievable technique for any level. So that's that. That's what's happening there. So when we made her doctor's appointment, we did not realize that Peanut was going to be off of school. It was a teacher in service day. And so I had to call yesterday to make sure that it was cool that I brought my kid in because of this time of year. Just with the sickness and with the pandemic and stuff, they've been much more conscientious about how many people they'll let into a room. And so they said it was no problem if we brought him, which was good because her appointment was really early. Here, I'm going in with a dark pink and a light pink to kind of mimic those looks of blossoms. And so I'm just, instead of holding my marker at an angle to create that leaf shape, I am doing it as more of a rounded shape, and I'm just going down with the tip and straight back up. So I started with my darker pink, and then I'm going to go in with my lighter pink. I am going to go over some of those darker ones just to kind of get a couple of different tones, but I am going to concentrate the lighter flowers around the edges, again, because, you know, more light would get through in those areas. So that is what I did with that. And then at this point, honestly, like you wouldn't even have to add stamped images. This is like a super cute little look by itself. Once you put the grasses in, wait until we put the grasses in. And then you could just stamp a sentiment on it and it would be adorable. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to add my little characters because they were kind of the inspiration for the spring scene to begin with, because I wanted to use them out of season, which you guys know I'm a big fan of kind of getting more out of what you have. So if you have these creatures or you have other, I shouldn't call them creatures. That doesn't sound adorable at all. That makes them sound like, I don't know, Ursula or something. If you have these little wooded characters, little woodland characters, there we go, that's nicer. That, or anything like that where they're kind of dressed up in sweaters, you of course can use them for fall. That's usually what they're intended for. You can use them for winter, clearly, because they're bundled up. Or now you could use them for spring, because who are we kidding if you think springtime in Ohio does not still require a sweater? It does. It definitely does. We had a kind of break in the weather this week, which means my dogs are mud monsters again. But it was like in the high 40s today, which, like, my friend Dawn in Florida is like, oh my God, that's horrific. That's winter for us. But for Ohio, 40 is pretty balmy. And I think tomorrow is supposed to be in the 50s actually, which is, I guarantee you will see people in hoodies and shorts. 100% that will happen. One of them will try to be my kid and then we'll argue about him wearing a coat because having older children that can have their own opinions is a super good time. It's not. 0 stars. Don't do it. So here, what I'm doing is, this is how I'm going to fix that kind of difference between the blue sky that's underneath my trees and the green grass that's underneath my trees. I have to neutralize the color, and that's part of the reason why learning color theory is so important. So in order to make it all the same, I'm going to go in there with a blue that is similar to the sky that I have, and I'm going to make it all one color. This is going to eliminate the stripes. Then I went over it with a brown and it's starting to look green. And I'm like, okay, in order to neutralize the blue, I need something that has a little bit more orange or yellow in it. And so I picked up this mustard colored marker and I went in with that. Now for this one, I used a lighter blue instead of a darker. That also worked just as well to get rid of the stripe and blend the color down. And I did end up liking the lighter one better, but either one of them will fix the problem, and then you add that yellowish orange over top of it, and it will make it brown again instead of a green. So with these little trees in the front, I added some little grasses around them using the same green that I used for the trees because I like using the same colors. First of all, it cuts down on what I have to link. But most importantly, it creates cohesiveness in the card. I just want to note on my yellow my yellow-green combination, normally my lightest color is a YG01. I did end up for this one using an FYG1, which is the fluorescent green, and that was literally only because I was too lazy to fill my Copic marker. I'm just being upfront and honest here. So now the background is done. I'm going to go ahead and stamp my little woodland critters, and then you want to make sure that you're stamping in something that is safe for alcohol markers if that's the medium you're using. I am using the Intense Black ink from Hero Arts. This is kind of like my go-to one. And then we will get into coloring these little guys. And again, I did speed it up just a smidge more than I normally do, just to kind of fit everything in a timely fashion, because I don't like showing you one thing but not showing you another. I'm not a big fan of that. So here is how I envision this little scene. It reminds me very much of like a family waiting at the bus stop. And before you come at me and say, Kelly, a bear and a moose and a beaver and a fox and an owl is not a family. Like, families come in all different shapes and sizes. So certainly they could be a family. But I don't do the bus stop wait because of the fact that I drive my son to school. This is a whole nother story, but I drive him to school. But I always pass the parents that are doing the bus stop wait at the end of my street. And some of them are sitting in their car with their parents. Some of them are standing outside and kind of chit-chatting with each other. Everybody always has coffee in their hand. Like, if they're an adult, they have a hot beverage of some kind. Because I've just told you, like, it was 40 today, which is relatively warm. But the other day, it was like 9 degrees. So I would definitely be a parent who was waiting in my car, no matter how antisocial that was, that appears to be. But that's just kind of what it made me think of, is like this mom and dad with their little coffee waiting for their bus to come pick up their little kiddo so that they can go off and start their day. I do look forward to being a bus stop parent. Now, the reason that I drive Peanut is because he went to a different school before we moved. And then when we moved, I asked him, do you want to go to the same school or do you want to go to the new school you're zoned for? And he wanted to continue to go to his original school, which I had no problem with. It was not his fault that we moved and, I chose to get remarried and all of that stuff. So the deal was he could continue going to that school, but if your child goes to a different school, you have to provide their transportation. So that is how I got roped into driving him to school every day, which I am very fortunate because when I started working, full-time as as an artist, as a crafter, as a card maker, I don't know, when I started doing this full time, I don't know what the proper term is. I would take him to school and then I would leave the house to go pick him up from school. And my father very generously offered to pick him up from school so that I would not have to take the break in my work day. This benefits them both in multiple ways. The first one is that they get like their time alone in the car to hang out with each other, which I grew up, you guys, if you follow my channel, I grew up spending quite a bit of time with my grandparents. And so I love that he has that relationship. And on Mondays is their special day to go to Dunkin' Donuts. So they do that as well. And then if he doesn't have any homework, sometimes he'll call me and say, can I go to Nana and Papa's after school? So then he ends up going over there and like playing and so like it benefits them and their relationship as well as benefits me because I don't have to interrupt my work day. So he's been doing that for quite some time, but I am almost always the one who takes him in the morning. There has to be some extenuating circumstances for somebody else to be the person who takes him. Consequently is why I see the bus stop people. So yeah, anywho, I'm trying to think. So what were we talking? Oh, we were talking about it's an in-service day, so we had to take him to Caitlin's doctor's appointment with us, during which I made mention, and I was like, I know we're here for the baby, but if you could just generally talk about what a healthy lunch looks like just in general for all people, because my child has been giving me so much pushback on lunches. It's infuriating. So after we had the argument about lunches, this is a very long story. Long story short, he wants different things in his lunch that I'm willing to pack him. And I won't pack him the things that he wants because I don't think that they are healthy for him. Not saying that you can't have a treat every once in a while. Not saying that you can't, put potato chips in your lunch versus goldfish or pretzels every once in a while. But he wants it all of the time. And sometimes he gets that when I'm not the person responsible for packing his lunch. So recently, I was cleaning out his lunchbox and I noticed that the spoon for his yogurt didn't have anything on it. And I was like, buddy, did you eat your yogurt? And he's like, I didn't eat I don't eat your lunches. And I was like, so what are you doing with the food? I was like, I'm throwing it away, which enraged me because not only is it a gigantic waste of money, but it is also a gigantic waste of my time. And if you know me, my time is a precious commodity. And so the fact that I spend the time packing your lunch and then you're throwing the food away, it was infuriating. So we go back and forth about this until finally I told him, fine, you can just buy from school and you can eat whatever they make you. And he was like, no, I still want to pack my lunch. I just don't want what you put in there. To which I replied, fine, you are now responsible for packing your lunch. So that's what he's doing. He is the one who is responsible for packing his items. And then one of us, either Eric or myself, will check it to make sure that it is a well-balanced meal. So the other day he packed his lunch and he packed himself strawberries, which was a good choice, a Nutella sandwich that's just bread with Nutella in between the bread, just so we're clear, and Doritos. That was his lunch, and a pink lemonade. So I was like, bro, I'm going to let it go because we are running late to school, but that is not a balanced lunch at all. So then we end up having to have this long conversation about like simple carbohydrates and sugar crashes and how your body breaks things down differently for energy, not to mention, you know, the clogging of your arteries and all that jazz. And it's not like this is the thing I think that makes me the most frustrated is it's not like he doesn't ever get sweets. It's not like he doesn't ever get chips. It's not like, you know, I make him eat celery sticks, and, you know, like Triscuits or something. Like he has plenty of other things. Like I put yogurt in his lunch and he said, hey, I like the kind with the Oreos in it. So I compromised. And as long as he would eat the yogurt, which was, you know, low fat vanilla yogurt, but he had some Oreos crushed into there, I felt like that was a win. But now it's gotten to the point where everything about the lunch is an argument and I am at my wit's end. So I casually mentioned it to the pediatrician because that is also his pediatrician. And I don't even think that it sunk in when the doctor said it. Like, dude, I do not know what I'm going to do with that child. But I am very much over the lunch struggle. But the thing is, he's my child. And that means that he is very much like me. So he is a little argumentative and stubborn and opinionated. But I am tenacious. Like, I think he thinks he's going to wear me down, but he's not. Like, that's not going to happen. This is not something I'm willing to budge on because I am shaping his eating habits for the whole rest of his life. And so while I do not want to create a situation where he feels like he is deprived of things, I cannot send this kid to school and expect him to perform well and have enough energy to get through the school day with a Nutella between two slices of bread, yo. Like, I don't know how else to explain it to him. So I think what my game plan is I'm going to print off the food pyramid because that was one of the things that the doctor talked about today. And so I think I'm going to print it off and tell him, like, these are the things that need to be in your lunch. You have to check off one from each category. I don't care what those things are, as long as it's one from each one. And hopefully that will work. I don't know. He gives me a lot of pushback, but eventually he usually, because he is a good kid, he really is. He just gets in his head from other people sometimes that he has a say or he doesn't have to follow the rules because other people don't necessarily hold him to the same standards, but I do, and we will. So anyway, here, I just wanted to note on this little fox, somebody had asked me, and I can't find the comment, and I'm sorry. Somebody had asked me about coloring for red hair, like if they were coloring a person with red hair. This fox combination is a very good combination for red hair. The only thing that I might add for like a lighter tone would be like an E33, just to get a little bit of a more like a lighter strawberry blonde in there for some highlights, but that would be a very good combination for red hair, and that one is YR24, EYR24, yeah, E37, 39, and E99. So now that coloring is done, we're moving on to the die cutting portion, and I have found that these little bits of masking tape work pretty well, and they don't tear my paper. So I may be swearing off low-tack tape altogether. I haven't decided yet. As you can see, this was just left over from a different card that I did, and I just used it because it was sitting on my desk. So here I'm coloring this little tree stump. It is super cute, and like I said, My Favorite Things does all kinds of giveaways and stuff. Like they have rewards and all kinds of things when you order from them. And so this was one of the like bonus things that they give you when you order over such and such amount. And they give you like 3 choices too, whatever you want. And I chose the little tree stumps. So that's what I'm coloring here. Something else to note, now that I've told this whole story time and you've probably completely checked out, I apologize for that. My friend Wendy, has this, she's offering some classes. Wendy's, I think the name of her channel on YouTube is called Love and Stampin'. She is doing something called the Creative Vault, which is basically you can sign up for a membership. It's $15 a month. Currently, you can get a half off your first month with the coupon code VAULT. I'll link that below if you're watching on YouTube. And so basically what she's offering is a memory class, a basic card class, a 3D card class, which is kind of cool. And then she asked me if I would do a coloring video for her. And you can see all the details on her website, but the gist of it is you have access to everything as long as you remember. And for every month, there will be those 4 things released. And then she also does a live event. If you are a person who enjoys those, she will also be doing a live event. Wendy is a similar video style to me. She tells stories during her YouTube. So if you're not familiar with her, I would definitely check her out. But if you're just like, I just can't get enough Kelly coloring videos, that is another option for you to get 1 extra video a month that will not be on my YouTube channel. Because I'm all about supporting small businesses and helping out people who are good people, and Wendy is really good people, and so I was happy to do it for her when she reached out and asked me. So yeah, so that's that. Anything else? No. So we're building the card. So at this point, you saw that I have this little panel in the background that's also ink blended. Originally, I thought I was going to put this on a white background, but I didn't like it. So I just used the same colors that I used to just very quickly ink blend that. The scene, for the most part, is still contained on my die cut. But I did just put that little bit of color in the background. So here I'm just kind of laying everything out to make sure that I put my beaver where he's supposed to go on his little tree stump. You may also have noticed that the color of his sweater changed. The color of his sweater changed because the pink that I had originally colored it was competing with the pink of the mooses. Possessive. Mooses. Yeah, that's right. Somebody with a degree in English, tell me. But anyway, it kind of, they were competing with each other. So I just took my YO2, which is a yellow marker, and just kind of color glazed right over it to make it more of like an orangish pink. And it was enough of a change while still being a spring color that I was happy with it. So then once I got all of the little guys glued down there, you guys know I am not a lover of the white outline, so I am going to go in and color those to just blend them into the scene a little bit better. And I did that for all of it. For the parts that hung over into the trees, I did that same kind of stippling leaf technique right over the white areas. And I also put a little bit of grass and shadows underneath the areas where they were standing, or in the beaver's case, where the stump is standing. And that just gave them a little bit more ground. For my bear, he kind of hung over my die cut. I just continued that grass right on out the side, and it was fine. I went in with a white gel pen and added some highlights to the fox's nose, to the beaver's nose, and to the owl's eyes. And then I also, just to kind of play up that cherry blossom kind of look, I also did a couple of little dots in the trees. The last thing I did was add some glitter to all of their little outfits, as well as my rays of sky. And then that is it. That is the whole card. So I hope you guys learned a little bit of something. I hope you enjoyed story time. Thank you so much for your time. I always appreciate you, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.